What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm back with another treasure format video. Took a brief detour back into Yugi Kaiba in my last video, and if people like that sort of thing, then I could potentially keep making detours back in older formats. But for now, we're blazing ahead with treasure format, and we're finally getting into some of the decks that I think are a bit more jank. Now, up until this point, I've covered things like just the good stuff pile and burn and mill, which are all, I think, very, very good and impressive decks in the format. But I think the main selling point of treasure format isn't really those decks, but more the sort of magic ruler jank that you can play. And you couldn't really play these jank decks as effectively in MRL format, as having access to so many unlimited hand rips just really hampered any sort of combos that you could put together. But I think that in treasure format, these decks can be a lot better and can even thrive. So I'm excited to start showing them off. The first one I'm going to start with is actually one that I also showed off in MRL format, but I do think that it does deserve the category of jank, and that's this sort of like equip aggro deck. Now, you could definitely go a bit more jank with this deck, maybe including things like Mahavilo or Taylor of the Fickle, but honestly, I think that those sort of just weaken the deck. I think that the deck is best when you're just playing powerful monsters and having the equip spells as cards to supplement them with. But before we dive in to the card-by-card breakdown of this exact build and why I made the decisions here that I did, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. We're only 20 subscribers away from 400, and I'd really like to reach that milestone in January, just to start 2023 off right. So if you're not already subscribed, please do. Also, if you want to play these sort of obscure formats that aren't really played anywhere else for yourself, then we do have a Discord server now. Link will be in the description down below, but it's a great place where you can play treasure format and any of the other formats that I featured on this channel. And lastly, as always, if you enjoy the video, please be sure to give it a like down below. It really helps out the channel. But with all that out of the way, let's dive into this equip aggro sort of deck. So the main philosophy behind the monster lineup in this deck is basically to just get as aggressive as possible for the most part. So to that end, we have 3 Mechanical Chaser, which is the premier level 4 beat stick in this format. 1850 attack, no drawbacks, so you want to be playing this. But we also have 2 Jiraigumo, just to have an even bigger monster on the field. When you equip this card with something like Active Despair or Megamorph, it actually gets above something like Mahavilo would. So that's why we're not playing Mahavilo, because we have this instead. And its potential to have your life points does play well with Megamorph, as it can drop you down low enough where your life points are below your opponent's, and you can use Megamorph for a big aggressive push. I think you could also use Dark Elf for this purpose, but I like Jiraigumo more, as it can always attack, and also, if we're playing this over Mahavilo, then Dark Elf equipped with Active Despair doesn't actually get over the 3050 that Mahavilo will go to if you equip it with an Active Despair. So I kind of like Jiraigumo because I think attack-wise it just outclasses Mahavilo in most cases. And also, it can enable you to always get aggressive if you need to. Of course, we can't be playing all big beat sticks, so we do have recruiters to search them out, which can search out either of our big beat sticks. And we've also got 2 Sandgame, which can search out our witches, but can also search out things like Mystic Tomato, which can fetch out any of our recruiters from the deck and which replaces itself when it's destroyed by battle. Given that 1400 is pretty much the next highest threshold before 1850 that people are playing in terms of attack, Mystic Tomato is kind of a beat stick in its own right, so it can also be very good at getting aggressive pressure on the field. It also crashes very nicely with a variety of monsters in this format, including something like Cannon Soldier, which we are also playing in this deck. Cannon Soldier is great in an aggressive deck like this, just being able to clean up that last bit of life points that your opponent might have left after a big aggressive push. But of course, in a format like this, we can't only be playing aggressive monsters, and so that's why we're playing 3 Magician of Faith. This can be very good at getting back your power spells, of which there are a lot in this format, and also very good at getting back equip spells if you want them. It also pairs very well with another card that we're playing in this deck, Painful Choice. Now, I think maybe you could switch out Painful Choice for something else, but I really do like it in a deck like this, which has this sort of split between its aggressive monsters, its utility monsters, and also its aggressive spells and more utility spells. So, Painful Choice, I think, more often in this deck than in like a regular good stuff deck, can actually be used to guarantee a win later on in the game. So, I think it's really nice for that reason, and as I said, it does pair extremely well with Magician of Faith. For the other spells, let's start with the powerful limited spells. We of course have the original Power 5 limited spells, Change of Heart, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, Pot of Greed, and Raigeki. And we also have the new limited spells from Magic Ruler. So this includes the Hand Rips, Forceful Sentry, Delinquent Duo, and Confiscation, as well as our last equipped spell in the deck, Snatch Steal, although this isn't really used like the other equipped spells are. But Snatch Steal can still basically guarantee an OTK if you use it on one of your opponent's powerful monsters. For our other equipped spells, as we mentioned, we've got 2 Megamorph, which I think is honestly the better equipped spell in the deck because it has more versatility. You can equip it to an opponent's monster when you're ahead on life points. You can equip it to one of your own when you're down on life points. It is just a very versatile card and a very fun card to play. But we of course also have 2 Acts of Despair, as just a flat 1000 attack boost can be very, very good. Maybe in the future, I think I might adjust these ratios, maybe just adding a 3rd Megamorph over an Act of Despair, because Megamorph is so flexible. But I do just like having this flat 1000 boost when you need it. And I do think that you want to play around 4 equipped spells just to play better with Painful Choice. But, you know, this is also a matter for debate. You could definitely cut back or increase the amount of equipped spells. Although if you do increase it, then I do worry a bit about consistency. But I think 4 is a nice number for these. And for the last spell card in the main deck, we have 3 Mystical Space Typhoon. I think the Mystical Space Typhoon is the best spell and trap removal in the format, despite Heavy Storm being in the format, because it can snipe things like Wabokus on your opponent's turn or Snatch Steal on your opponent's turn, which Heavy Storm can't quite do. In addition, if you're playing with equipped spells, you probably want to keep those equipped spells on field, so Mystical Space Typhoon fits in better in terms of that as well. For our traps, we of course have a Mirror Force, an insanely good trap if you manage to pull it off. We also have 3 Solemn Judgment, and this is very good at just stopping your opponent from preventing anything that you want to do, but also very good at cutting your life points below your opponent's to pair well with Megamorph, just like with Jirai Gumo. So that's why it's in the deck. You could definitely replace this with something else, I think, but it fits in with the fun Megamorph gimmick, so we've got it in here. And lastly, for the traps, we have 3 Waboku. This could probably be something like a Trap Hole instead, as I said, Waboku can be sniped with Mystical Space Typhoon, which really greatly lowers its effectiveness in this format. But, you know, I don't really think we need something like Trap Hole to act as more removal, as we just want to get aggressive and remove things through our monsters. So I do like Waboku in the deck here. I think maybe you could cut this down a little bit, maybe replace one of these with an Upstart Goblin, which plays into your Megamorph strategy a bit more and cuts down the deck a little bit. But for now, I like this in here. For the side deck, it's nothing too special. We have 3 Man-Eater Bug if we want more removal, as well as 3 Trap Hole and 3 Fisher, again if we want more removal. Trap Holes can be especially good if our opponent is playing a similar sort of aggressive deck with big beat sticks, and so it can be good to bring in those cases. We also have a ton of spell and trap removal, 2 Heavy Storm and 3 Giant Trunade, just to deal with things like Burn or Mill. And lastly, we have a Tribute to the Doomed to also deal with Mill. I think maybe you could increase this to 3 and cut down on some Fissures, since we do have Trap Holes as well to deal with that. But I honestly think that against Burn, the Heavies and the Trunade should probably be enough, and against Mill, having things like Solemn Judgment helps out a lot. But now that we've talked about the ins and outs of this deck, let's dive into some games with it. Okay, we've got a game against Declan, who I believe I've featured on the channel before. Always happy to have them on. They're very active duelists in the Discord, so exciting to feature some games with them. And I picked these games partially to show off the equipped deck in more detail, but also to show off another strategy a bit, which you may see in the games shown here. So we're going to do rock, paper, scissors. We will get rocks, so we will be able to go first here. And let's see what we do. We see that they're playing a 43 card deck, which means that they're likely not playing a standard deck, so this game should be interesting. But we've got a pretty good hand. We can just open up by setting a Recruiter. We could potentially set the Judgment, but honestly, I don't even think we need to. We might just do it just to have a back row to bluff them, but we're not activating that anytime soon, as we are at pretty much full health, and we don't have a Megamorph on hand. So they're just going to bring out a Mystic Tomato and try attacking over our set. That works out perfectly for us. It's just a Sangan, so we'll be able to add a Witch. They're just going to set 1, pass back to us, and we draw Painful Choice, which honestly is not the best right now. I think we'll probably save this for later when it can be more effective. But we're just going to bring out a Mechanical Chaser and attack into that Mystic Tomato. Yeah, they'll get a monster to replace it, but we're getting a bit more aggressive here. And we feel fine about this. They're going to get out Sangan, pass back to us. Honestly, we're okay with that because we can just attack over it next turn until we see that they activate a Swords Revealing Light, which will stem our aggressive pressure here quite a bit. They're just going to switch these Sangan to defense, pass back to us. And we don't really have a way to deal with these swords right now. We could Painful Choice some Mystical Space Typhoons to the graveyard, but that seems like a real waste, as then they'll basically know that they don't have to play around spell and trap removal for the rest of the game. So we feel fine just biding our time. And they're not going to really do anything here, so we're just going to set another recruiter, pass back to them. If they've got a board clear here, we get 2 searches, which is pretty nice. They're just going to bring out a Witch, though, and attack into one of our sets. And they'll attack into our Witch, so they actually will take 100 from that and pass back to us. We draw Mystic Tomato, which is okay, but again, nothing we can really do with that now. We're just going to set another recruiter, might as well get another search if they've got a board clear here. I think maybe this is honestly a bit greedy, as, 2 searches should be more than enough. But we might as well do it, get aggressive pressure on board in case they don't have a board clear. And we feel pretty good about this. They're just going to set 2 more, switch their Witch to defense, pass back to us. We draw an Axe, which we don't really need to use yet, as we do have a way to just clear their board and attack in for some damage here. So we're going to try attacking. Looks like they don't have a Mirror Force, or they're saving it until after we clear their recruiters. And they're going to add a Sonic Bird to hand, which means that they likely are on a sort of ritual strategy, which is a bit of a jank strategy that got a lot more viable in this format. So exciting to see the first sort of hints of that on this channel. But we're going to be able to attack in for 2200 here and drop them down to 5250. Now we are going to actually Painful Choice here. We're going to send the Hand Rips just to be able to sort of mitigate the searches that they just got. And we're also going to send just 2 very powerful cards, a Pot of Greed and a Raigeki. So we're hoping that they give us a Hand Rip, so we'll be able to deal with their hand a bit. But if they do give us a Pot of Greed or Raigeki, then we're in a pretty strong position for next turn. Also, we have the read that they don't really have a board clear, so we could just set the Magician of Faith to get back one of those powerful cards next turn. I think that's part of what we're doing here. They're going to give us the Forceful, which means that we will be able to get hand knowledge of their hand. They're just going to Magic Jammer, discard a Karibo, and pass back to us. Or we'll pass back to them. They're going to summon out Sonic Bird, and they will search a Black Illusion Ritual here. And they will activate Black Illusion Ritual. And they're going to tribute off that Sonic Bird for the Relinquished here, which is kind of rough because they can potentially take our Magician of Faith and prevent us from getting the effect off, which would be quite annoying. But it looks like instead they're just going to target our Mechanical Chaser, and they'll attack in here. So they will be able to get over the Sangan. We will get a search off that, and we can get a pretty good search in Cannon Soldier. We could potentially just wrap up the game next turn. They're going to set one and pass back to us. We draw a Dark Hole, which would be pretty nice. We're going to flip up the Magician of Faith and try and get back a powerful spell, but they do have a Solemn for that. We could Solemn it ourselves, but I think honestly we're fine with letting the Magician of Faith die. We've got ways to get in for a lot of damage here. We could potentially just honestly kill them if we activate Dark Hole, summon out Mechanical Chaser, and activate Axe of Despair. So that might be what we're going to do. We're going to activate a Dark Hole. They are going to activate Solemn again, and honestly we're fine here because we just summon out a Cannon Soldier and tribute away our board. I don't necessarily know why we need the Axe of Despair. I guess we can get in for damage here, but I think honestly we should just tribute away our board. And that will just be the end of the game, as the writing was on the wall there. So I think that was a very good showing for Equip Aggro that game. I think it especially shows that if your opponent is playing something like Solemn Judgment, this deck can take major advantage of that, even if it doesn't necessarily go all in on equip spells. I mean, I don't even think we had to use any equip spells there, as the Cannon Soldier on its own would do it. So we're going to just go into game 2. I don't really think we make many changes here, as I think we are pretty well equipped against Relinquish, pun intended. And we draw a pretty bad opener, so maybe this is a bit of a rough one. They're going to summon out Sonic Bird right away, get a Black Illusion Ritual, set one, pass back to us. And we do draw a monster, which is pretty nice, but it isn't the best. I mean, we could just get aggressive right away. We do have Change of Heart to pair with the Cannon Soldier, so that might be what we do. We're going to summon out the Cannon Soldier, not using its effect with priority. And they're going to let that go through, so we're just going to Change of Heart the Sonic Bird, try attacking in for a bunch here. If they've got Mirror Force, then that's kind of unfortunate, but either way we'll be able to clear the Sonic Bird. So we'll attack in for 28, Cannon Soldier will tribute off the Sonic Bird, dealing 500, And we're just going to set 3 as, if they do have a Heavy Storm, we do have the Solemn Judgment for that. They are going to Mystical Space Typhoon our Solemn Judgment though, so that is quite unfortunate. Now if they have a Heavy Storm, they'll be able to get a major playoff here, which is very rough for us. They're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato, try attacking in, and since this is a very good play for them, we're going to Mirror Force, just clearing away that tomato. Yeah, it's only a 1-for-1 trade, but it prevents them from clearing our monster and getting an additional monster on board. So we're fine with that. We're just going to attack in with the Cannon Soldier, keep getting aggressive here. And main 2, we're just going to set the Woboku, pass back to them. They're going to bring out another Mystic Tomato. And they're just going to attack into our Cannon Soldiers. So we're going to Woboku that because we've got the Fisher to deal with it next turn. And they are indeed going to bring out another Tomato. Main 2, they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Magician of Faith, which is pretty good. We are going to try Fishing away that Tomato. They unfortunately do have the Solemn Judgment for that. But actually this will enable us to win the game here in a very clever way. So you may remember in the deck breakdown that I mentioned that Megamorph is a very versatile card. If your life points are higher than your opponent's, you can use it to have one of your opponent's monsters' attacks. And that's what we're going to do right here. We're going to equip Megamorph to Tomato, attack into it with the Cannon Soldier dealing 700, and now they're below 1,000 life points. So in main 2, we can just set the remaining card in our hand and tribute away our board to deal the last 1,000. So you might be wondering, why did I show off this game? Equip Aggro is just curb stomping this Relinquished deck, and Relinquished isn't, the top tier good stuff deck in the format. Am I just trying to make Equip Aggro look good? And, the reason I wanted to show this game is I wanted to show off, I think some of the major strengths that I think the deck has. It can get really aggressive really quickly, which some slower decks can't quite deal with, and also can use very versatile cards like Painful Choice and Megamorph very effectively. And I think that all of that really shone through in this match here. However, there is another reason why I wanted to show off this game, because it provides a good background for our rematch here, because immediately after we played this game, we actually played another one with the same decks. And it may have turned out a little bit differently. So let's dive into that match. So we've got our rematch here. Both of us are on the same deck because we just went immediately into the rematch, made no changes. So we are going to do the rock, paper, scissors, and we'll wind up going second here. They will be able to go first. But hopefully we should be able to do pretty well because we managed to win pretty convincingly in the first match. Unfortunately, we're going second here as this is a great going first hand with these 2 hand rip cards right here. They will be able to just activate Pot of Greed, set 1, summon out Sonic Bird, get another card to replace it, and pass back to us. That's something that the Relinquished deck does really well, just getting continual card advantage through its Sonic Birds and potentially Senjus. But we still have our hand rips, so we are going to go for it. We're going to activate Delinquent Duo first, ripping 2 cards out of their hand, and they will discard a Heavy Storm here. We are then going to activate Comfy, and that will not get Magic Jammered, so we will be able to see their hand here. And we see that they've got 2 Black Illusion rituals, a Witch, and a Giant Germ. So they've got the ritual spell, but they've got no way to get to Relinquished here except for the Witch. So I think the Witch is the pick here. And we do indeed snipe the Witch out of their hand. So we're going to think about what to do here now, and we're just going to try Snatch Stealing the Sonic Bird to attack in here. I think maybe this is a bit of a mistake. It's only getting in 400 a turn, but they don't really have any way to capitalize on this. We're going to set the Magician of Faith here and just pass back to them. And they're going to gain 1,000 from the Snatch Steal, which is part of why I think it wasn't maybe the best play. And they're going to actually activate Heavy Storm here, clearing away our Snatch Steal. It makes sense why they discarded another Heavy off the duo now. They're going to bring out the Giant Germ and try and get aggressive here, but they will attack in to our Magician here. So we're going to grab back that Snatch Steal. I think maybe we could have grabbed back Duo instead, but we really do need a way to sort of clear more of their board here. They're going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Dark Hole, so we're just going to Dark Hole the board away, set 1, pass back to them. This sort of plays around if they've got a hand rip like Duo. And if they do have a Mystical Space Typhoon to snipe the Snatch Steal, the Mystical Space Typhoon would have gone to the Snatch Steal anyways. So we're not too torn up about that. We are going to just bring out a Mystic Tomato here, attack in for 14, and that will connect. So we're going to pass back to them. They're going to bring out another Sonic Bird to search out another ritual spell. So now they've got all 3 of the ritual spell, I'm pretty sure, and they will activate a Snatch Steal of their own. So they will be able to get in here for 2,800, which is a bit unfortunate. Drop us down to 2,200. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. We will gain 1,000 though, which is pretty nice. And we're going to activate a Change of Heart targeting the Mystic Tomato. So that way we can try crashing into the Sonic Bird. I think honestly we probably should have Change of Hearted the Sonic Bird in case they've got something like a Mirror Force here. But it works out well because it looks like they do not. So we will be able to get out a Witch of the Black Forest and attack in for an additional 1,100. We're going to set our Solemn. We don't really have to play around Heavy Storm because we know that they're out of that. And they're just going to set 1 and pass back to us. We're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato, and we're just going to try and get in here for a bunch of damage. We're going to get in for 11, but they will get a search here, and they will be able to search out the Senju. And this could potentially show why Senju is good, because, you know, they don't really have material to tribute off for the Black Illusion Ritual if they just searched out Relinquished. But with Senju, they will have a monster to tribute away with it. So they're going to Mystical Space Typhoon, targeting our Solemn Judgment, which is a very good play on their part, because we might have Solemned the Senju, honestly, if they summoned it out, just to prevent them from getting Relinquished and getting a monster on field to tribute for it. They are going to be able to bring it out, though, and they will be able to add the Relinquished to hand here. They're going to attack into our Witch, so we will get a search here, which is somewhat nice. And we're just going to grab a Cannon Soldier. I think maybe we could have grabbed just a Mystic Tomato to crash into the Senju, or crash into a Relinquished equipped with Mystic Tomato. But I think we're trying to do this just to, you know, make use of the Snatch Steal with the Cannon Soldier as a form of removal. But it might be a little bit greedy. In case they've got some form of interaction here. They're going to Black Illusion Ritual, tributing out a Relinquished here and equipping the Mystic Tomato to it. And we're in pretty tough straits. We're going to bring out the Cannon Soldier and then activate a Snatch Steal. And they're going to actually Magic Jammer this, which it may be a sign that we should have activated the Snatch Steal first and then brought out the Cannon Soldier. But, you know, they know we have both, so they could potentially have ordered their plays in a different way anyways. But the issue here now is that their, you know, Relinquish will be unequipped with anything. So now they will be able to sort of suck up anything that we bring out next turn, which is quite unfortunate. They're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato, attack indirectly for 1,400, and we're at very low life. We're at 1,500. Forceful Sentry will not do anything here. We're just going to set the Magician of Faith. This will allow the Relinquish to suck up something here, but at least they will now have an equipped monster equipped to it. And they will attack in for 14. Now, I think this is a bit of a misplay. I think we honestly should have just attacked into Relinquished with the Magician of Faith. Yes, that would have been really bad, as we would have taken 1,100 here. But we don't really have any other recourse, and Relinquished has a nasty effect that if you take battle damage while it's equipped with a monster, your opponent takes the same amount of damage. So if we do draw any monster and just like set it, for instance, then they can just switch Relinquish to attack into that monster, and we will just lose the game. We draw Waboku, which is okay, but, you know, we're in a really tough spot here. We've got to use the Waboku now. Luckily, they don't have, like, a Solemn for it, but we're in very dire straits. Witch of the Black Forest, unfortunately, will not do it, because they can just attack into it with the Relinquish, and so that will just be the end of the game. Now, I don't think that we played that perfectly. I think we made some major misplays along the way. But honestly, you know, I'm not sure we would have won even if we had played correctly there. I think that Relinquished as a deck is really good late in the game, as you've sort of searched out the bricks like Relinquished and Black Illusion Rituals with Senjus and Sonic Birds. So you just have a constant stream of good cards coming your way later in the game. So since we were in that sort of late game situation, I'm not sure we would have been able to effectively claw our way back to victory there, especially when they had a Mystic Tomato on field. But maybe if we had done things a bit differently, we would have been able to win there. Unclear, but either way, I don't think we're going to switch things up in Game 2. We maybe add in some Fissures, because that can deal with Relinquish pretty well. But I think, in general, we feel like our deck has a decent matchup against Relinquish, and so we hopefully should be able to win here. We draw Change of Heart and Cannon Soldier in the opener, which is a great opener to have. We also have Mystic Tomato, which is great to set. And we have a Hand Rip, so this hand is pretty killer. Very unlikely that we will lose from this position. We'll activate Forceful Sentry. See what they've got. They've got a Relinquished, a Senju, a Witch, a Raigeki, and a Mystical Space Typhoon. So, a couple good options here. I think that Witch and Raigeki are the best of them, as Witch can get them a Sonic Bird, which can get them a Black Illusion Ritual, which of course would be quite unfortunate for us. But honestly, Raigeki is a major threat to us, given that we do have Mystic Tomato, and Raigeki can deal with that very well. So I think we might actually take the Raigeki instead of the Witch. And we do indeed take the Raigeki. So we write down whatever else is remaining in their hand. We set a Mystic Tomato, and we set the Solemn and Waboku. Pass back to them. If they've got Heavy, we can just chain Waboku to it. Kind of unfortunate. If they've got Duo, we might honestly want to Solemn that. But it looks like they don't have either of those. They're just going to bring out a Senju, search out a Relinquished here, and they're just going to attack into our set. We can just take this opportunity to get another Mystic Tomato, which will make for a very good turn next turn as we just crash our Tomato in and attack indirectly. And they're just going to set one and pass back to us. We draw a Megamorph, which isn't really useful yet, but we'll bring out a Cannon Soldier here, Change of Heart their Senju, and try and get in for a ton of damage. If they did draw a Mirror Force and set it here, we do have the Solemn for that, and I think it would honestly be worth doing. They take 4,200 life points, and so we will tribute off the Senju and drop them down to 3,300, and we'll just pass back to them. We feel like we've got a pretty good board. If they do draw mass board clear, then we do have the Solemn for that. And we also have a Waboku, and it looks like they do draw that mass board clear, so we will indeed Solemn there. So we drop down to 4,000, but I think we're still in a very good position. They're going to set one, pass back to us, and we're just going to bring out a Mechanical Chaser, and we're just going to try attacking in. So we'll attack into their set. It's a Giant Germ, unfortunately, which will drop us pretty low, but I think, honestly, we just want to get in the damage here and take the 500s. It'll drop us down to 2,500, but we do have Waboku. Now, if they've got a play to make next turn, then they can always Mystical Space Typhoon the Waboku in our end phase, which is quite unfortunate. But I still feel fine about this. Unfortunately, they do Mystical Space Typhoon the Waboku in the end phase, which is very worrying for us. They're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato, attack into the Cannon Soldier, and that's honestly pretty fine. They're going to get out a Mystical Tomato, but I think we're fine with this. They're just going to pass back to us. We're at equal life points, so we can't do any Megamorph shenanigans here. But I think we just fine crashing our Tomatoes in. So we're going to go for that. We'll crash our Tomatoes. They're going to get out another Tomato, so we'll get out another Tomato. We'll hit into their Tomato. And, you know, we're just going to try and keep the aggressive pressure going. They'll have to get out a Witch here as they've exhausted their Tomatoes. And I believe we have also exhausted our Tomatoes. Yep, we have. So we will also get out a Witch. And instead of attacking with the Witch, we'll just attack him with the Mechanical Chaser. Deal 750 and then deal another 11. They will search out a Sonic Bird, so they will be able to get the Relinquish combo online, but honestly I'm feeling pretty fine about that. We'll just set a Waboku there. They're going to bring out the Sonic Bird, and they're going to add a Black Illusion Ritual to hand. They're going to activate the Black Illusion Ritual, tributing off a Relinquish from their hand to bring out another Relinquish, and they will be able to take the Mechanical Chaser there. And it looks like they're not going to attack. I guess they're afraid of a Mirror Force or something. But honestly, I think we're fine with that, as we can do a very fun interaction here. So if we activate Megamorph targeting Relinquish, as long as our life points aren't equal, Relinquish will actually go to 0 attack here, because its original attack is still 0. So Megamorph will actually just turn to double or half its original attack, which will just be double or half of 0, which is 0. So that's kind of a funny interaction here. So if this does go through, we'll just be able to attack with the Witch and deal the last remaining bit of damage to their life points that way. And they will have Solemn for this, so they will be able to deal with that Megamorph. And unfortunately, we can't really do anything about that, so we'll just switch the Witch to defense, set another Witch from hand, and pass back to them. This should still be good enough, as we can search out something like a Gumo for next turn. They're going to Heavy Storm, we'll chain Waboku, and unfortunately this will mean that they will be able to suck up another monster that we have here. It's just a Witch though. They're going to switch the Relinquish to defense, set one of their own, pass back to us. I think it makes sense that they did not attack into Witch, as we could have searched out a Mechanical Chaser, but unfortunately for them it may not matter. We're going to activate the Reborn here, target Cannon Soldier, and that will just be the end of the game here. So we did manage to win game 2, but I think that these games have showed that, you know, it's a much closer matchup against Relinquish than the first match made it seem. And I think that really points to a major fact about this equipped deck, and that's that it's honestly not really that good. I don't really think it's tier 1. I think it's firmly in tier 2. And, you know, against another tier 2 deck like Relinquish, it can have some trouble. Relinquish is a much more controlling deck, and if it can get its control engine online, then you could be in for a lot of trouble here. So, we will just go into game 3. I think we largely keep the side deck the same. We do indeed have the Fishers in though, so that's pretty good. And they activate Duo first turn, so they will be able to snipe a Megamorph here. And we'll just discard a Mechanical Chaser. We've got Witch to search out another if we want it. So we're not feeling too bad about that. They're going to bring out a Sonic Bird here, search out a Black Illusion Ritual. And they're just going to set one, pass back to us. We draw another Fisher, so we could just Fisher their Sonic Bird away. And it looks like that is what we're going to do. We're just going to attack in for 11 here. And we'll just pass back to them. We know that they don't have any more duos since they just used it. So we can feel fine keeping our cards in hand. They're going to bring out a Tomato and then Black Illusion Ritual out a Relinquish here. So they will be able to get in a fair amount of damage here. They're going to deal 2,500 to us, which is quite unfortunate, but luckily we do have the Dark Hole for next turn. We're going to Mystical Space Typhoon their set just in case it is a counter trap, as we do know that they've been playing those. And indeed it is, so I feel very good that we do that. We are then going to Dark Hole their board away. And we will be able to get a search off here with the Witch. We're just going to search out another Witch, send it out, attack in for 11, and just pass back to them. They're going to just set one, pass back to us, and we draw a Sangan. So we're just going to bring that out and just try and get in for some damage here. And we do unfortunately run headfirst into their Witch, so we won't be able to clear that. Main 2, we're just going to switch our Witch to defense and just pass back to them. They do have a Mystic Tomato, so they will be able to attack over our Witch here. And we will search out a Mystic Tomato of our own. And they'll attack into the Sangan, and we'll take that opportunity to search out another Sangan. Main 2, they're just going to pass back to us, and I think we've got a pretty good opportunity here. We're going to bring out the Mystic Tomato, attack into their Witch, deal 300. They will be able to get a Sonic Bird to search out a Ritual spell, which is quite unfortunate. But we do have Fisher to get rid of that Mystic Tomato. We're going to set a Mystical Space Typhoon, pass back to them. And they're going to heavy our Mystical Space Typhoon, which is quite unfortunate. We kind of wanted that to sort of snipe an Equip spell off of their Relinquished. But unfortunately, they will be able to search out the Black Illusion Ritual here. And it looks like they will be able to pull off the combo. So they're going to bring out a Relinquished, equip it with our Mystic Tomato, and get in for 14. They'll pass back to us, and we draw Magician of Faith, which is very good. So we're just going to set the Magician of Faith. Hope that they have the read that it's a Sangan, because we did search the Sangan earlier. And it looks like they might indeed have that read. So we're going to grab a Dark Hole from graveyard to hand here. And they're just going to pass back to us. Maneater Bug is pretty good, but we just want to get aggressive here. So we're going to bring out a Sangan and just attack in for 1,000. We're going to pass back to them and see if they've got anything to do. They're just going to set one, pass back to us. We draw a Mystical Space Typhoon, which is okay, but doesn't really do anything here. We're going to attack into their Faith, and they will unfortunately get back Pot of Greed, which could be very good for them here. We're going to set the Mystical Space Typhoon. No need to commit the Maneater Bug just yet in case they have a board clear. And we'll pass back to them. They're going to bring out a Senju here, which will enable them to search out a Relinquished. And then they're going to activate the Pot of Greed, so that way they don't draw a Relinquished off of the pot. And they're just going to attack in for 400 here. We will get a search though, so we will be able to search out a Mystic Tomato to crash into that Senju and then get some more damage in. They're going to try setting one and passing back to us. We will just snipe it with the Mystical Space Typhoon, and I'm very glad we do because it is a Mirror Force. We draw a Woboku, which is pretty good, but we're just going to bring out the Tomato and attack into the Senju. So we will be able to get out another Tomato here, attack in for 14. Now, we couldn't have actually gotten out like a Sangan or a Witch because we've actually gone through all copies of that in our deck, which puts us in a bit of a precarious position. But I still think we're pretty well situated here. They're down to 2,100, which is very low. And, you know, they've gone through a lot of their Relinquished and Black Illusion rituals. Unfortunately, they do have this Swords of Divine Light here, and they will just set one, pass back to us. Quite unfortunate. I think we're just going to set one of our own, pass back to them. If we can get the Magician of Faith to get back like a Mystical Space Typhoon next turn, we can press the offensive here. Unfortunately for us, they will be able to flip up a Magician, activate Pot of Greed, and maybe draw something that will help them out of that situation. And they do indeed. They will activate the Dark Hole here, clearing the board away, preventing us from using our Magician of Faith. And they will be able to bring out a Senju to attack in for 14, which is quite unfortunate here, dropping us down to 2,000. We're in major danger, and we're in even more danger when they activate the Forceful Sentry, shuffling back our Man-Eater Bug. We're going to need a pretty good top deck, and that is not it, unfortunately. We will be able to fisher away the Senju, but given how much they've drawn, they probably have other monsters to use here. But it looks like they don't, so they're just going to pass back to us. We're just going to pass back to them. No need to double up on Wabokus here. And they are going to Heavy Storm, so I'm very glad we didn't double up on those Wabokus. We're going to chain Waboku. They'll set one, pass back to us. And we're just going to go for the Cannon Soldier here. Unfortunately, they do a Solemn Judgment to prevent that from hitting the field. And they will drop down 1,050 though, so we feel pretty good about that. We're going to set the Waboku, pass back to them. And they're just going to set one, pass back to us. We draw another Waboku. Again, no real need to activate it or set it here. They're going to think about this, and they're going to flip up a Trap Master. Very interesting. But that Trap Master will just target the Waboku, which we can chain here, so we feel fine about that. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw Pot of Greed, which is one of the best draws we could have gotten here. We draw two, and unfortunately, we don't draw anything too good. We draw an Act of Despair, which could be useful for later if we draw another monster. But honestly, this is one of the big flaws of the equip deck. The equip cards are dead if you don't have any monsters in hand, and unfortunately, we do not. So we're just going to set the Waboku, set a Solemn Judgment. I believe they've used up both heavies. They have indeed used up both heavies, so we can feel safe doing this. And we're just going to pass back to them. They're going to attack in for 500 here, dropping us down to 1,500. But we're honestly fine about that. We can save the Waboku for a more meaningful play later. We draw a Magician of Faith, which is actually very nice here. So we'll set that. Unfortunately, they do have Raigeki. We're going to think about this, and I think we are going to Solemn Judgment this, as this is a big play on their part. And they will just activate the Black Illusion Ritual here, tributing away that Trap Master for a Relinquish here, taking the Magician of Faith and passing back to us. We do have Man-Eater Bug, so that we'll be able to deal with the Relinquish, but we really did want that Magician of Faith to go through. They're going to Stop Defense, which is honestly fine, as it will enable us to pop their Relinquish. Stop Defense can enable your opponent to have a face-up monster in attack mode for Relinquish to crash into, to clear, to equip, and then it can equip that monster to itself. So I think that's a very interesting tech card to include here. Unfortunately, it backfired for them. But they do have a Mystic Tomato here, which is quite unfortunate. We will Waboku that, and we have a bit of a decision to make here on our next turn. We could Act of Despair the Man-Eater Bug and attack into that Mystic Tomato. We check their graveyard to see what they've used up, and they've only used up one Witch though, so they will likely be able to get out something like a Sangan or a very powerful Recruiter that can be very good. And we also might want to save the Act of Despair for later when we draw a monster that can actually just kill them. So I think what we want to do here is we're actually just going to switch the Man-Eater Bug to defense and set our entire hand. Again, we know they don't have heavy, so these should likely be preserved here. And if they bring out another monster like Sonic Bird, we're just going to Solemn Judgment that to prevent them from getting another monster on field to attack indirectly with. Unfortunately, they do have Snatch Steal here, so they will be able to snatch our Man-Eater Bug. And that will just be the end of the game, as this axe isn't really useful here. So I think there wasn't really much that we could have really done here to change this outcome. Maybe if we had equipped the Axe of Despair to the Man-Eater Bug, and then had our Solemn online for their Snatch Steal, maybe things could have worked out differently. But honestly, we were in a really tough spot at really low life points, and they would have a Recruiter on field very likely from the Mystic Tomato. Or if they were playing Cannon Soldier, we would have just lost the game from that. So I honestly don't think that would have really helped us out much here in this situation. And, you know, this does really show that these equip spells can be major bricked if you don't have good monsters to equip them to. The aggro deck in the end could not get down that last 1,050 life points, which is very unfortunate, but that's how it goes in some games. Relinquish, I think, had a really good showing here, and I will be showing off more of Relinquish in my next video, so get excited for that. This is just a taste of things to come. But I do think that both of these decks are tier 2, and these two matches really showed off why, and showed how they can really compete against each other in some very interesting ways. But what did you think of these games? Do you think that I'm sort of underrating Equip Aggro and it's actually a tier 1 deck? Or do you think that I'm underselling Relinquished and that's a tier 1 deck? Are there any changes that you would make to the Equip Aggro build? Do you have any strong arguments for including Maha Vilo over something like Jirai Gumo? Let me know down in the comments below. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.